Right. So for me, I think the toughest thing, I think growing up, honestly, like middle school, high school, college, now I've sort of got a lot of like I'm educated on the fact of like when to go on the field and do some work, when to go in the weight room, making that balance of like, hey, I think I've had that question each day, like, what should I do? Should I go in the weight room? What's going to be more important for me? And I guess for the question, in terms of to help you better answer it, in terms of building a foundation, if you were to limit your week's work into like 10%, you could only do 10% of what you'd optimally do during the week. What would you focus on to build a great foundation, to be, I guess, a lacrosse player for this question?
So I think it matters drastically on age. So young players, and I feel like I've had this talk when I was at Maryland. I did some stuff with some high school players. Like your skill is your ticket to the big time, right? Like it doesn't matter how strong you are in the weight room, how injury resistant you are. Like you just have to be good at lacrosse. So I would say it's a spectrum that skews more towards strength training and like physical work later in your career. Whereas because when you're young and your brain is so plastic and you can improve like biomotor ability so quickly, like the skill acquisition is so much quicker when you're younger. So you really want to be focused on skill early on. And then as you get later in your career, so like late 20s, early 30s, things like that, like your skills are your skills. You don't get much better. Like how old are you, Connor?
25.
25. So, I mean, at this point, you're probably not going to get that much better at lacrosse now. Like the way you play now, you're not going to suddenly like, I don't know if like you're a good left-handed shooter, but like that's not something you're going to develop now. Like if you're not a good left-handed shooter by the time you're 25, you're probably never going to be a good left-handed shooter. You might be able to get better a little bit, but like the skill is pretty cemented at that point.
Mhm.
So then I would say the easiest way to improve is become a little bit better physically now as you get a little bit older. I mean, obviously you can't ignore the skill component. Like you want to continue to stay sharp on those things, but like the amount of improvement that you can get in terms of skill is the window's narrowing the older and older you get. So then you can start to see improvement though, like with what you're doing in the weight room, what you're doing fitness wise, things like that. Those are going to be things that I think that you can improve your game or maintain your game at a high level if you're improving physically, if that makes sense. Like the best way I have heard it like talked about is our old academy coach was saying like essentially by the time you leave your academy, he was trying to like we had like a bad practice and he was trying to talk to like our U19 players about like the urgency of having good training sessions every single day. And he was like, the way he put it, he's like, you are the player you are by the time you leave the academy. So I think it was a little extreme, but he was essentially saying by the time you're 19 years old, like you're the player you're going to be. You only get better at terms of being more consistent with the skills you have and quicker with the skills you have. So again, to bring it back to you, like you can, again, you're probably not going to develop like an awesome left-handed shot if you don't already have this by the time you're 25. But whatever skills you do have, you can become more consistent with them. So you can become like, okay, I can, again, I don't know lacrosse skills as well. So like if you can like pick corners from the outside, like you can get more consistent at that. Whereas before you were hitting them 5 out of 10 times, but now you can hit them 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10. So you can get more consistent with the skills you have and you can get quicker with the skills you have. So like doing those same things under pressure quicker, but you're not going to develop a whole new skill set essentially once you're into your 20s. So that's a super long explanation to say, I would say early on, you really want to focus on skill because by the time you're like in your 20s, the window's pretty closed in terms of developing new skills. And then that's when I would start to focus a little bit more on the physical side of things. Not that you ignore it completely early on, but you really want to take advantage of the physical or of the skill side of things when you're young. Like a really good analogy is like language, right? Like you see kids pick up new languages like that. Like it's insane. Whereas if I was going to learn a new language now at 31, it would take me months and months. Whereas like little kids can pick up new languages.
Yeah.
Just as you get older, picking up new skills becomes astronomically harder. But getting better physically, it still becomes harder as you get older, but not quite to the same effect.